Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. If that's a happy day for you, not everybody likes Mondays. I do. I like Mondays because it feels always like a fresh start to me, and that's why I like it. Yeah, I just want to thank you for showing up. We are continuing our book reading from My Father Knew the Secret. Excellent book. I haven't cheated and I haven't gone ahead and read. But I certainly love what I have read so far. And I do want to call out or shout out to the gentleman who reached out to me um, through Messenger and thanked me for doing this. I want to thank you for acknowledging it because he's all the way from Dubai and he saw the series or whatever you call it of me reading it on YouTube because I'm streaming this to my Quantum Connections Incorporated and Quantum Academy, who there's a handful of people in there. And I'm also streaming it to YouTube, which I haven't renamed the channel, but I believe it's under Julie Townsend. So, anyway, stick with me. I really appreciate it. Let's, without further ado, we are going into chapter 4. Have your pen, have your notebook, because there is all kinds of good stuff to be heard. Chapter 4, communicate your feelings. Father's Day. Quote, Dad, you've always been my hero. Unquote, Brian Proctor. My father was born during the Great Depression, and soon after, his father was sent to Europe to fight in World War II. When his father returned, he was not the same man. Like many men of that time, his wounds were deep. I don't know much about my grandfather. It was not something Dad spoke about. If it came up, he would say, "It is what it is," and then he would turn the conversation to his beautiful life and what a wonderful mother he had. I always marveled at what a good father Dad was, despite not having that as a young boy. He would often say that his life was magnificent and that riches take many forms, and one of the things he enjoyed most was his family. He passed that love of parenting on to me. Dad was an excellent example for me to model. He supported and encouraged me. Most importantly, he was always there for me. That never wavered. I knew I could talk to him. I could call him at any time, and he would pick up the phone and be happy to talk to me. Around 1980, my mother was planning to get married again, and my father moved back to Canada from the United States with his love interest, Linda, who later became his wife, so that he could live with us full time. Linda is 18 years younger than my father, so when she moved with him to Canada, she was only 27. Unfortunately, at that young age, Linda had already been tragically widowed when her first husband died from an unexpected long illness. Because of his condition, Linda and her husband had not had the opportunity to have children together. That meant when Linda moved to Canada with Dad, she was agreeing to not only move to a new country, she was also stepping into a ready-made and active family with 3 teenagers, 18, 16, and 14. Dad and Linda together showed us love in a way that felt selfless and complete. They taught us the importance of priorities and values. Dad had to rebuild his business from scratch in Canada. However, at this time, he wanted to create a new model where he was not traveling and leaving us home. This decision meant building a professional reputation that was local. That was not an easy choice financially, but he was willing to do whatever it took so that we could all be together. He and Linda went on to get married and were married for close to 40 years when he passed. Dad dedicated his book, You Were Born Rich, to Linda. He wrote, dedicated to Linda, who brought the sun from the south and willingly shared it with Brian, Colleen, and Raymond. And as you can imagine, we are all very grateful to Linda and love her dearly. When I was fortunate enough to be near my father on Father's Day, we would have a barbecue with the entire family in his backyard. His backyard was his sanctuary. It is where he preferred to be, and my memories of those times are vivid. I can close my eyes and see his smile as he looks around at all of us, his kids, grandkids, and great grandkids. If I was not near him on this day, Dad and I would instead have a long phone conversation and reminisce. Hmm. There were always a lot of laughing, was always a lot of laughing. My father had the best laugh. You couldn't hear it without smiling. It was that kind of laugh. It turned heads. Today, as I write this, it is Father's Day, and what I am most thankful for is that we were both able to say everything we needed and wanted to say to each other before he passed on. So many people don't get that chance, and I know what a gift that was. I can still hear the things he said to me from his hospital bed and the tender and loving way he spoke. He was so kind. He knew his time was limited, and he wanted to make sure every person in the family understood his love for them. Often while in the hospital, when he would drift off to sleep while I was next to him, I would type into my phone what he had said to me so that I would not forget a single word. I go back to those notes often, and I feel his love. We put my father's urn into his final resting place only a week ago. It was a beautiful day. The birds were singing, and the entire family was there. We all felt wrapped in Dad's love for us and also our love for each other. We each took a few minutes to share a memory of something Dad taught us. It was bittersweet to be saying our final goodbye in this way, but to feel his love like a warm hug around us all together would have been exactly what he wanted. When it was my turn to speak, I had one thought repeating in my mind. I knew it was Dad talking to me. He wanted me to make sure that his family felt his love. So I spoke about the different ways Dad made time for each of us and how he loved us uniquely as individuals, how he taught us to love our children, friends, and family in deep and meaningful ways. At this moment, I also shared something that made everyone laugh, but drove home the point of Dad's fierce desire to make us feel special. I talked about the time in the hospital just before he passed. I had been with him for several hours, and it was late into the night. As I was getting up to leave, he pulled me in close. I was surprised by his strength and urgency. I thought he was going to say something, but instead, he moved my face mask down and pulled me in for a big kiss on the lips. He then looked deep into my eyes and told me how much he loved me. I remember walking out of the hospital vibrating with tears in my eyes. Okay. My father was a strong and unique man. I am hard pressed to recall a time as an adult when my dad kissed me on the lips. It caught me by surprise. The intimacy of the act felt like an exchange of energy. I could feel the power that still lived within him. Consider, we're on page 81. Do the people you are close to in your life know how much you love them? Leave no doubt in the mind of your loved ones. Please do it now. Let them know right away. I know my father left us with peace in his heart because this is how he lived his life. It is an example I encourage you to follow. Whew, it's a powerful statement for me right now. My family is not very happy with one another, and like all families, I'm pretty transparent. It's sometimes great, sometimes not so great. We are moving on to chapter 5. I love that picture. You see it? Other way. Bob. I wasn't there, but I feel like I was there when I look at that picture. Quote, "The blame game is a dumb game." End quote. Bob Proctor. Excuse me. Chapter 5, Forgiveness. Finding freedom. Quote, True forgiveness means that we choose to accept things as they are, extract the good, and let go of the rest. End quote. Bob Proctor. I had just hung up the phone following a heartfelt discussion with my father. It was as I was writing this chapter. I called him because I had a question about his thoughts on forgiveness. You see, I have witnessed him reclaim his inner peace following a betrayal or hurt many times through his life. Over the years, I heard Dad share stories about people who had taken advantage of him, but he never seemed to harbor any negative thoughts about that person. He explained to me that he is so practiced at guarding his mind against thoughts that don't serve him that he doesn't give his betrayers any thought at all. He doesn't let them enter his mind. And if they do, he immediately replaces that thought with something else or picks up one of his dogs to change his focus. He will never do business with or engage with them again. However, he will not allow the experience or person to cast a cloud on his life. Instead, he literally releases the person to their highest good and him to his. That's powerful. That's very powerful. This is page 85. He then said something I heard him say many times when teaching. Quote, holding a negative thought of someone in your mind only damages you. Forgiveness is for you, not the person. Most people think that if John hurts me and I forgive him, I do it for John's benefit. I'm not. It is for my benefit. I am the one releasing what is bothering me. By taking responsibility for my peace of mind, I choose how to respond to it. End quote. I looked up the definition of forgiveness, and this is what it is. Psychologists generally define forgiveness as a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings or resentment or vengeance toward a person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they deserve your forgiveness. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean condoning or excusing offenses. That definition supports what my father taught me, allowing me to see that forgiveness is all about how those feelings affect me. I have chosen to make forgiveness an adventure. For me, the word adventure has a positive connotation that relates to experience and growth. Several years ago, someone I was close to did things that caused me extreme mental and emotional pain. I can still remember the way my entire body felt. It was a deep hurt that I felt on a visceral level, and I never wanted to experience it again. It was a situation that took me a lot of time and courage to forgive. Unfortunately, I continued that relationship for an additional 2 years after learning what she had said and done. I did this because I wanted to ensure I had tried everything possible to make it work. When I look back on it, the real reason I stayed so long is that I feared I would look weak to my friends and family. As a middle-aged man, I had yet to have great success in romantic relationships. What would everyone think of me? Failing again. I was wrong for staying and not leaving. By caring what others would think of me, I created more pain and resentment for myself. It wasn't healthy. To move on and release myself from the discomfort of it all, I knew I had to face how I got there, and I needed to forgive her completely. I also needed to forgive myself. I was punishing myself for letting it drag on the way I had, and for staying in a place that did not honor me or my principles. This last relationship betrayal convinced me I would never settle again. I had said this before, but this time was different. I remember Dad saying to me, "You can't change the time you got out of bed this morning." I love that. Such a simple reminder to look forward and not backward. What has happened in the past has happened, and now it is just that. It's a part of the past. So, how can you forgive someone or even yourself and make it an adventure, an experience you learn from? I did it by opening my heart and working to direct my thoughts from a place of empathy, gentleness, and kindness. The release I felt was gradual initially, but I could stay with my thoughts longer with the time. Soon I felt freedom in my entire being. With love for myself, I give myself permission to let go. Letting go is not forgetting. It is dulling pain's sharp edges and replacing that with self-love. And to love yourself, you must learn to let go. By letting go, I weakened the turmoil in my body was experiencing from my thoughts. Finally, I began to move more freely, mentally, emotionally, and physically. I could exhale. In Bob Proctor's seminars and programs, Dad encouraged people to send love to those that have caused them pain. It's the person that causes your chest to tighten and maybe your stomach hurts when you think of them. This person can even be you. This exercise creates peace and harmony within, and with consistent practice brings freedom from anger and hurt. It is to make space to allow good to come into our lives. Do this exercise in a quiet room. Close your eyes and imagine the person who's causing you pain. Next, fill your heart, mind, and body with warm energy. You may even find yourself becoming emotional during this exercise. That's good. This is an easy thing to do. Is this an easy thing to do? Maybe not. But personal growth is a choice, and forgiveness gives you freedom. You can choose to grow and be free. By forgiving, you are freeing yourself to move on and experience better in your life by removing the blockage that anger and hurt create. Consider, is an experience, person, or memory causing you pain? We can't change what has happened, and we cannot change what is outside of us. The only thing we can change is what we do with it. We can change our framing of how we think and feel about it. When you notice the ruminating thoughts of the experience, person, or memory that caused you pain, take a deep breath and ask yourself, is this thought empowering me or draining me? You do not need to be a victim in your story. Being a victim is very different from being victimized. Do less blaming and use your awareness to recognize when you are in the blaming loop. This includes self-blame, which is the ultimate form of emotional abuse. Do you make life choices based on what others think of you? Worrying about approval from others is the fear of being found out or the fear of looking bad. It's that negative loop of telling yourself that you are an imposter. It comes from doubting yourself. You need to face that fear and let go of the need for people's approval. When you do this, you will discover your authentic self. When you find the part of you that doesn't care what others think, you will more easily build meaningful relationships. This is because you will be lining up your actions, thoughts, and behaviors with your core values. What would happen if you loosened your grip on thoughts that hijack your mind? Always remember that you control the script and you can shape that script. What would happen next in your life if you just dropped your end of the rope and whatever struggle you're dealing with and free up your resources to engage in building positive, productive behaviors? Wow, there's a thought, eh? I'm going to read that question again. What would happen next in your life if you just dropped your end of the rope of whatever struggle you're dealing with and freed up your resources to engage in building positive, productive behaviors? See how quickly Bob Proctor can teach you how to shift whatever's going on in your life. It doesn't matter how low you are. You can radically turn that around by doing the polar opposite. Okay, we're moving on to page 92, Decision, Chapter 6. Oh, I love this. How do you see it? Quote, faith and fear both demand that you believe in something you cannot see. End quote. Bob Proctor. Oh, sorry. It also says you choose, which is true. When my father spoke about using your mental faculty of perception, he would drive home the point that our choices, not circumstances, create the life we desire. What is significant to one person may be small to another, and in our effort to grow and learn, we must be willing to use perception to consider the many sides of a person, situation, or circumstance. It is always fun to watch the confusion unfold in the room when Dad would hold up a book and ask the audience if they saw the front or the back. Of course, they would say they saw the front. Dad insisted it was the back, which would turn into a scenario of who's right. Finally, he would point out that they were all right. The audience could see the front, but my father, holding the book up, could see the back. Many years ago, Dad reminded me of this lesson in perception when I was looking to purchase a home in Florida. I had fallen in love with a house that I felt was out of my price range. I spoke to him about the house and the price, saying I thought the cost was prohibitive. He paused, looked me in the eyes, and said, compared to what? When I continued to argue my point by telling him the asking price, he responded, that's all? With those words, he caused me to change my perspective instantly. Which changed my perception. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to read it again. With those words, he caused me to change my perception instantly, which changed my perspective. It was as if the clouds in my mind parted. My relationship with my dad has taught me that sometimes you must borrow someone else's belief in you when your belief in yourself is not on solid ground. Having Bob Proctor believe in me has kept me going when I couldn't see how I would get there or find the strength. Throughout my adult life, there has been times when Dad and I lived far from each other, but during those years, we always found ways to spend time together. One year, he and Linda rented a home in Florida close to where I was living. So having him close gave us a lot of quiet, quality time together. During his time in Florida that year, I decided I needed his belief in me. Again, I was struggling with a decision about a house that would take me away, way out of my comfort zone. I knew in my heart that I wanted to go for it, but I was scared. I needed that extra push. No one pushes you like Bob Proctor. I know from experience that if I ask my father if he thinks I should do something out of my comfort zone, I'm setting myself up to go for it. So I told Dad I needed some advice and asked to have lunch with him to discuss it. I let my thoughts flow as we sat outside the beautiful Florida sunshine, in the beautiful Florida sunshine. He listened patiently as I explained the second home Corey and I had purchased on the water at the southern end of Puget Sound in Washington State. The location is gorgeous with an expansive view. However, although patched together over the years, the original house had been built in 1903 and needed a lot of work. Essentially, the home was a teardown, but we would have to call it a remodel because its original build location was so near the water. It is much closer to the water than a home would be allowed to be built today. There were various permits, government agency surveys, and of course, significant costs that would be involved. It felt extremely complicated and costly because we also wanted to accomplish all of this without seeking a loan to pay for it. This would require a large sum of money over the next year or so, money we did not have. Sure, we had some of it, but nowhere near what we needed to complete the project in cash. And once we signed the contract, we were committed. While explaining this, I went over all the different ideas Corey and I had brainstormed to make it happen. Now here's the thing. Although I was struggling with the decision, I knew how much I wanted it. So I was ultimately aligned with my desire. My heart was going full speed ahead, but my head was trying to slow me down. I was scared. But as I've said, I would not have asked Bob Proctor, my father, for advice if I didn't want to do it. I was putting myself on the hook by talking with him. As I continued telling him how we could bring in an income, I felt excited. Finally, Dad stopped me and said, Brian, do you really want this? You will find a way to make this happen if your want is strong enough. You do not need to figure it all out right here, right now. If this idea scares you, then you're likely on the right track. While sitting there and hearing myself talk, I knew I had committed to moving forward. I quickly went from a desire to a decision to a committed decision. That is the part of the wonder of being a in Bob Proctor's energy. Anything feels possible, and you will frequently find yourself experiencing quantum leaps. I felt that lunch. I left that lunch knowing I wasn't looking back. So each day I wrote out and thought this goal. I added detail to my vision of this house completed. Corey and I would talk about it each night at dinner. We would get excited and talk about having the kids together at the house and what that would feel like. The energy we were putting into this added to the realness of the goal completed. Each day I became clearer on what needed to be done to achieve it. I was paying attention to daily opportunities and taking action. It wasn't long before I became obsessed. And obsessed is what you need to be. You need to fuse with your desire. Dad had been teaching me this lesson for as long as I can remember, and it makes me laugh to think of his patience as he listened to me at the age of 57, asking him if he thought I should go for it. Today, as I write these words, Corey and I are living in that beautiful custom-built home on the water and loving every minute of it. And we are also proud of everything we did to get here. By only focusing on how we could do it, we no longer gave any energy to why we couldn't. As a result, in a relatively short period, we were able to build the house we truly wanted the way we wanted to. At our Matrix events that were held in Toronto, we worked closely with each client to coach them on the initial stages of goal setting and help them stretch to their big C goal, a goal that excites and scares them at the same time. During the first part, we would work on their vision and help them to create an emotional attachment to that vision with descriptive words that excited them. Then we would coach them on staying open to questioning their beliefs about accomplishing big goals. Finally, we would guide them to stay out of the idea of how at this stage. That is precisely what Dad did with me that day in Florida. Once he got me on track, nothing stopped me. Now, when I'm working on something I know will cause me to stretch, I tap into that memory of sitting with him at the restaurant in Florida. By stepping back and altering my perception, I can create multiple perspectives that change everything. My most significant growth has happened when I have been my most uncomfortable. There is a quote by Steve Jobs that Dad liked to use. Quote, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. So you must trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You must trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. This approach has never let me down and has made all the difference in my life. End quote. What Steve Jobs said makes so much sense to me. I could never have imagined what obstacles I would face when working to achieve some of my biggest goals, let alone plan for them. Knowing the specifics of challenges in advance may have held me back. This is why faith in what you want and your ability to achieve it is essential. I have gotten to where I get excited about that feeling of fear because I know it means growth. As Bob Proctor said, stop overthinking. It's okay not to know the answers. Answers will come to you when you least expect them. Relax. I know it's 12:30, but I just am going to finish off this chapter and then we can start on the new chapter. So I'm on page 99. It says, consider, do you have a desire that you push aside because you cannot imagine how you would achieve it? Everything is possible. It doesn't matter if you're starting small or that it may be a while before you get there. Your growth occurs in the process of the journey. Stay open to the fact that anything is possible for you. Believing in yourself and surrounding yourself with others who believe in you will bring you more of yourself to the surface. I can't stress that enough. Okay. When I started this journey of personal development, I have to say it was my own spouse that really wasn't on board with what I was doing. So I really couldn't share what I was doing with him because he would burst my bubble. And only, out of ignorance, strictly out of ignorance. He just didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. So, yes, I agree with this, what it says, surround yourself with others who believe in you, and and that will bring out more of you. So I spent a lot of time reading and watching Bob Proctor videos and getting myself really, really involved in that kind of material. So then it goes on to say, when you get there, you will have created something even more beautiful than you originally imagined. And that's very true. What does it mean to change your perception? Maintaining a single perception in your life can prohibit your growth. Think about how frequently we get locked into our point of view as the right way, the only way, or the best way. Instead, consider that there could very well be a better way, different from the one you see right now. Remaining open to the certainty that everything is perception widens your view. I am so conscious of this when I talk to people. I never lock into my idea as the only way. Dad taught me to be open to the fundamental fact that everything has many sides. So then page 100 is just an area in the book for your notes. And on Wednesday, if you want to join me again, I will be back and we will be on page 101 saying getting unstuck. That's something that probably pertains to most of us. Have yourself a lovely day, and I will see you on Wednesday. Bye.